So we're going to start out here with the visible satellite imagery because this is actually telling a pretty cool story. First, note that the cloud features in this region look a lot different from the cloud features over here. And that's because we have two different air masses that are being cut into by this cold front. This is a very strong cold front. It's already got some severe thunderstorm warnings attached to it, but that's one. Two, we have effectively a warm front across South Carolina. This is lifting northward as we speak. You have on radar, especially in the Columbia radar, some showers and perhaps a thunderstorm or two that is along this line that is moving northward. And this is separating the warm, unstable air to the south of that from the cool, stable air to the north of that across the Western Carolinas and Charlotte metro area. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is this area down here. Notice that there's a lack of clouds in that area. This is because the dew points have mixed out this afternoon across southern Georgia. Now, the reason that is interesting and important is because some of the models have this drier, slightly more stable air advecting northward and meeting up with the cold front, and i.e. the line of storms, across eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, and perhaps parts of western Virginia and upstate of South Carolina. So this is important because there was concern that the tornado threat across the Charlotte metro area would be perhaps realized by lunchtime Monday afternoon. Well, two things. One, it really depends on the speed of this cold front and the line of storms out in front. The earlier, like we've said in past videos, the earlier that it crosses, the better. Because if you have a late crossing, so the front doesn't cross you until maximum heating, the atmosphere is unstable, it can kick off some storms even out ahead of the front, which is more dangerous than the actual front itself because you have discrete supercells all by themselves produce all hazards, damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. But if that happens earlier in the morning, the atmosphere doesn't have time to destabilize. So that's one thing that's going for western part of North Carolina is because all the models have a morning passage across western Carolinas of this front, and i.e. line of thunderstorms. The other thing is what happens to this drier, more stable air as it advects northward. If it maintains its stability, some of the forecast models have that meeting up with the front across western Carolinas. So if this front interacts first with the rougher terrain of the Appalachian Mountains and then interacts at the same time this more stable air as it advects northward, then the severe risk across western parts of the state are minimized. Some models actually have that scenario playing out. Like the Rufus model, the 12Z Rufus model actually has that play out. Some of the other convection allowing models also have something similar, but then the some of the other models do not have that. So that's interesting that's something that we would need to watch over the course of this afternoon into tonight is the integrity of this stable air here. Does this survive the trip north? The Storm Prediction Center, if we go to our outlooks, Now we'll stop this loop. Interesting satellite image. If we stop this loop and we go to the outlook for today, there are there's chances of some isolated severe storms across the majority of South Carolina, North Carolina, and into the southern part of Virginia, and a more concentrated area in the western part of the state of North Carolina and South Carolina, and perhaps the extreme southwestern Virginia. Sure, I'll go with that. This is in part due to the line coming through, because this goes through 8 a.m. tomorrow. So some of the forecasts do have the line across the Knoxville area or perhaps Asheville area by 8 a.m. tomorrow. So that's that portion of the outlook. The day 2 outlook, this one, this is the main show that we've been discussing. There are indications that you might have some discrete supercells across eastern parts of Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, and even Virginia, and even up into Maryland, perhaps southern New York State. But the main show will be here in the mid-Atlantic to the Carolinas, where there are some indications that you might have large hail, damaging winds, and maybe a long track tornado. Because these storms will be moving very, very quickly, if a thunderstorm was to put down a tornado, it could be on the ground for a very long distance. So the tornado threat is very real at this point, especially east of 77. If we take a look at the tornado probabilities, while they have decreased, that's not how you do that. I did that again. Oh. While they have decreased across parts of the Western Carolinas, they have maintained across the eastern part. Now, the shading is coverage. The stitching is intensity. So the Storm Prediction Center, this is a new way of trying to communicate to the public with one graphic, two different things. So the higher the probability, the more coverage it is. Now, 15% might not be, 15%. Yeah, whatever. But with tornado risks, 15% is actually pretty high. In fact, it could be like 2 to 3 times more likely of seeing a tornado tomorrow than any other day at the same time of year because of climatology. So that's something to be aware of. The stitching says that it is a conditional intensity group of 1, which means that the reasonable maximum intensity of any tornado that could occur is EF2. Does that mean you will not have any EF3s? No, it does not. You could have an EF3. But the reasonable maximum would be EF2 and below. But anyways, so be aware that that's what the new Storm Prediction Center outlooks are trying to communicate. The wind risk has been pretty much elevated since the start of this. We've now gotten to a 60% wind risk. So the coverage of wind reports are, you're going to have a lot of wind reports. So the storm prediction, I did it again. Why? That's your precipitation, by the way. If you haven't already known, it's going to rain. If you were to look at this, the Storm Prediction Center is saying that they are expecting a lot of wind reports in this area. The stitching, again, is a conditional intensity group of 1. So you might have hurricane force gusts with some of these storms. The hail, it's there. Not as big of a risk for hail, 15%. Some of these in this corridor here, that it might be really, really large hail. So be aware of that. But the main driving force is this tornado threat across Virginia and North Carolina. So the Storm Prediction Center is concerned about the possibility of long track tornadoes, intensity EF2s. Could have an EF3, but it's not as likely. Wind reports are going to be numerous, especially with the main line. The main line of storms does have the potential to have both wind and hail reports in them, and that's a look at what the line looks like right now out in Missouri and Arkansas. And here is our warm front, effective warm front. It's not technically a warm front, but effectively. So that's what we have right now. If we take a look at some of the models, I will show you what I was talking about with the Rufus model. We can take a look at the NAM. There we go. If we take a look at the NAM, so here's effectively our warm front. This lifts off to the north by this evening. It's across Greensboro, and New Bern. This line really gets its act together after midnight. This is at 4 a.m. Local or Eastern time. And here you see how this line kind of disintegrates. This is one in interaction with the rougher terrain of the southern Appalachians, but also to some degree, this more stable air that was down here in southern Georgia, or currently developing in southern Georgia, and it gets evected northward through the night tonight. And maybe, just maybe, it interacts with this line and kind of weakens it until the mid to late afternoon. Once it gets on the other side of Charlotte, if we kind of zoom in here, first get rid of my drawing tool. If we kind of zoom in here over towards Charlotte, you're looking at it according to this model. This is one possibility. And then you notice out here towards the east, these isolated storms out ahead of the main line. Those are the ones that we have to keep an eye on, each and every one of them. However many they develop, which would be an all-day event. This is at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. This is the NAM nest. The NAM nest, the 3-kilometer NAM. Is it the best model? No. If it was the best model, then they wouldn't be retiring it at the end of this year. So there you have it. But anyways, they got better ones. The Rufus model, for instance. But I can't show you the Rufus model on this one. It goes back. I can show you this one, but that's not going to be helpful. If we look at 17Z and see what we got. Yeah. So you see it's not as much, but there is there looks to be some interaction with some more stable air. But again, these any cells that develop out ahead of this main line will have the potential to produce tornadoes. This is at 7 a.m. according to the 17Z Rufus model. So it's something to keep an eye on. This more stable air in southern Georgia, as we've seen on satellite, but we can take a look at the real-time mesoscale analysis rapid update of the dew points, and you see how, well, if we loop this, you can see the drying out of the atmosphere, the lower atmosphere in southern Georgia throughout the day today. So it's something to keep an eye on. That timing is going to be very, very crucial. But like we've said, it's not really going to matter for parts of eastern North Carolina. You guys look to be, especially Greensboro, Henderson, Greenville, Lumberton, Raleigh, Durham, over towards Williamsburg, Richmond, Virginia, Columbia, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. All you guys need to be weather aware. NOAA Weather Radio, have your favorite media outlet by your side, local National Weather Service forecasts with the latest in the forecast. You get your watches, your warnings, and advisories. You guys be safe. I will probably make an updated short this evening to see what the if the forecast is still on track. Until then, be safe and yeah, be safe.